Timely as ever. Um, so hey, this is not something I'm doing that's steep in the usual channel business. This is just something that I'm doing for fun. Um, I've seen a couple of movies recently. I'm just gonna give my thoughts on them. These were gonna go up a lot earlier, but I had some file compression corruption issues, so here I am. Uh, at the very least, even though both of these have been in theaters for a while now, it'll give me a chance to be a little bit more polished in my delivery and what I thought of him. Um, let's start with Baby Driver. That's the one that I saw earliest. So Baby Driver in Dunkirk. This was a few weeks ago. I went out to go see this. I think like a 9:50 screening at the theater. Um, full disclosure, this is my first Edgar Wright movie. I was not sure what to expect. Um, and honestly, I did end up liking this movie. I wasn't sure at first whether or not I was going to. Edgar Wright's style feels like something that I've seen lesser imitations of through pretty much my entire life. Because he's very slick. Definitely likes to show off the technical aspect of cinematography and car choreography in this, music choice in this especially. Um, but it's well done. And I think what makes this movie stand out is that there are a couple of things that it does, narratively speaking, that kind of break the mold that I was expecting this movie to fall squarely into. Because from the opening of this, like, definitely engaging and excellent and brilliantly staged, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be substantial enough, and it turned out that it was. So it's this movie about this essentially teen prodigy getaway driver. Um, Seems kind of like he might be on the spectrum, but I'm not sure. Uh, who is an expert at uh, getaway driving. He's got some. Woo, sorry. He's got some definite evasion skills. Plans out all his routes in advance. His stepdad is a deaf mute, so he can read lips. And about 20 minutes into this movie, I was like, ah, because they do the one last job trope, and it looks like it's not going to be. Obviously it goes wrong, but like I said before, there are things that especially from a writing standpoint, that I'm not expecting. Like, obviously he's got this budding romance on the side, and he's facing some pressure because he's so good at what he does, despite the fact that not everybody else is quite as professionally as he is, to the detriment of the mission. But um, one of the things I really like doing, what they do here, is the way they set up the villain, because you think that you know who it is, but it's actually set up before that very cleverly. But it doesn't feel like an ass pull. Like, it feels organic considering what happens when everything goes wrong. I really liked that. Because I mean, it's not something where you're rooting for the bad guy in this, but you understand where he's coming from for sure. Um, Solid acting all around. One thing that kind of surprised me about this movie, it wasn't that funny. Like, Kevin Spacey does get a couple good lines. Like, this theater was, there weren't very many laughs in this theater, but there was this great guffaw that went up when he has one of his lines towards the end. And something about his manner is very funny. Definitely enjoyed. Oh, hi. Oh, sorry, my dad's outside. So I definitely liked it. That a lot. The other thing that I thought was really, really well executed was the ending, because it looks like they're going to go for the typical. Oh, hey, hold on just a second. Sorry about that. Decided to say hi to my dad. Uh, but it looks like they're going to do the the stock right off into the sunset, or is it ending? And I think what they do is consistent, not only with the protagonists, like what we've seen of him thus far. Like, obviously he's a criminal and everything, and a huge theme of this movie is criminality catching up to those who perpetrate it. But again, while staying very much in character, um, he processes it very maturely, and I thought that was a really. I don't want to sound preachy, but I thought it was a great message considering the end of this movie. I really don't have a lot to complain about. Like I said, I didn't think it was going to be something that I liked as much as I did. Uh, I do wish that the romantic lead had a little bit more to do in this movie. Um, like, she's fine as an actor and everything, but she's the romantic lead. Um, see who else. Um, Supporting cast is great. Jamie Foxx is having the time of his life. Uh, John Hamm is superb. The What happens to his character in the end is really kind of rough. Uh, yeah, I really like this one. Uh, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on that. All right, hey, so for the next order of business, the second movie that I saw was Dunkirk, and I did not see this one alone. I saw this one with a friend um, out of town. It was quite an experience. This movie was not. I don't think this movie wasn't even 2 hours. It felt longer than that, but I mean that in the best way possible, not in the director's strong arm the editor to keep everything in there kind of way. Um, I I must have freaked my friend out a little bit when we got out of the theater because I was just fried by this movie. It's a movie that I would recommend going to see in theaters because I feel like that's kind of its intended mode of delivery, or um, cozy up to a friend with like a huge home theater system or something like that, because it is a movie that sound design is an integral aspect of, scale is an integral aspect of, just that kind of immersion in the movie. Like, it's a movie that I feel I would not have enjoyed nearly as much if I had seen this on like a small screen, like the laptop here. Um, I, I'm not usually one for war movies. I thought this one was excellent. Um, do be warned, it is incredibly intense. There are there are R-rated movies that I've seen that are not as frightening and intense as this movie. And it really sticks with you. I honestly, like, I got lost on the way out of town after getting out of this movie just because I was numbed by the continuous sensory assault. This movie is loud. Uh, this movie goes quickly, and the way that it's cut, which is clever, and I'm not going to spoil, because it does, I think, add something to the movie, gives a sense of disorientation throughout. Um, I would, I think, probably by far the least dialogue that Christopher Nolan's had in a movie. Like, he seems to have realized that dialogue and characters are his weak point, and this movie maybe overcorrects in the sense that, like, while these characters are organic, you really don't know anything about them, other than the fact that they're there and everybody's just trying to survive, and not even everybody's trying to help each other out, honestly, but most people are trying to help each other out. Um, yeah, I mean, good lord, what I think that the best way to describe Dunkirk um, would maybe be in equivalency terms, because a thought that I was having throughout this movie, I kept coming back to the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, where they're on Omaha Beach, and honestly, there's next to no blood whatsoever in this movie. Like, there's plenty of bodies, there is plenty of drowning, there are people being set on fire, but I think you only see blood maybe once or twice, in a very reduced capacity. But the thing is, like, what like Saving Private Ryan did for like battlefield carnage and making gore disturbing, this movie does for mechanical warfare, because you've got like planes coming out of nowhere and shooting down other planes, and the pilots still being alive in these planes as they're filling up with water, trying to get out, and they can't. You have ships being torpedoed with people inside and water coming in, and just like driving the air out of people's lungs and making them drown. Uh, God, but what Saving Private Ryan does for battlefield carnage, this movie does for the mechanical aspect of warfare, because there are scenes in this where like a ship yawing suddenly in the water, and you just see the crewmen on top of these, like scurrying like ants trying to get out of the way of this water, is terrifying. Um, the the score in this movie is like um, probably like the best major electronic foray that Zimmer has made in years. Like, I think Batman Begins is the only one that I can think of that works so effectively. I think it is overutilized, considering that the sound design in this movie is spectacular. Um, I I really could see this bringing home an Academy Award for like editing or sound design. Um, I don't know if score, just because it's electronic, and um, though Elgar shows up in it, of all things. Um, but yeah, there's this not quite Joker-esque shepherd tone that's going throughout the this thing that was just like in my head on the way back from the theater, and I could like hear it in my mind as I heard all the tolerances in my car kind of squeaking, and it just um really drives the scene. Um barely it, I feel like this is Christopher Nolan seeing, like, wondering how he can better his craft and work on um the deficiencies that people have started to find in his works, and like even works that aren't directly like don't feature him as director, but say have him on producer, like Man of Steel, because there's very little dialogue in this movie. Characters are very kind of crisply defined by wanting to stay alive and survive, and um, help each other out. Um, but it almost feels like he saw Mad Max Fury Road from a few years back and was like, "That's it. That's what I need to do." Um, because like in terms of kind of that minimalist and yet character plot driven story, you really understand this. Like the opening of this movie. Oh, if you're wondering what the mold is, like early on in, it's not that there's a plant in the ranks or anything. It's sorry, accidentally hit stop recording. Um, but yeah, like you definitely understand where these characters are coming from. It helps that some of the like when Nolan does go for like the imagery aspect of it, where it's just like static shots of something, it really succeeds. There's a scene when the introduction of Cillian Murphy's character in particular is haunting. Um, you see this little civilian fishing trawler like trundle up to the stern of this warship, and it's just a stern filled with air poking out of the water with nothing else for miles around. There are no bodies in the water. There's nothing. Um, just the very end of this ship, and on the top of it, curled to a ball, soaking wet, freezing, and waiting either to be rescued or just die, is Cillian Murphy. And just like the imagery on that is genius, and it is so much more effective than seeing this vessel would go down could be. Um, yeah, I just man, like I saw this movie over a week ago, and just even thinking about it now and what it was like being out of the theater afterward, it was this movie is an experience. If you haven't seen this yet in theaters, I fully endorse both of these movies. I might have liked Dunkirk a little bit more. It's not my favorite movie of 2016, but I do think it is one of the best. Um, yeah, it. Um, man, what else? Just the sound that these planes make and the way that um, like similar sounding noises are interpolated in the score is excellent. I just yeah, really, I need to see more uh, movies this season, but yeah, wow. I fair warning though, because like I said, even though this is a PG-13 with little blood, it is a hard PG-13. If you're not afraid of the water, you will be by the end of this movie. There is so much drowning in this movie. Um, I is there anything that didn't work well for it? Like I said, maybe a bit of an overcorrection as far as characterization and dialogue are concerned. Like I wasn't lost with understanding what people are trying to do, but with especially some of the soldiers on in the first part of the plot, it was kind of hard to tell who people were. I do uh, definitely commend just the casting choices here and the fact that they look like actual people. I mean, they've got like acne pockmarks and everything. I liked that. Um, yeah, I feel I wasn't. Hmm. So it is there. It is very hard to tell who is who. Um, some characters, there are times I won't be sure where like a character did that character just die, and but honestly, that the way that this movie is structured and how it's more about people coming together as a collective, that didn't really bother me as much as I thought it would. Um, yeah, I honestly, this has been like a fantastic. Well, obviously, there's some things that haven't worked, but this has been a fantastic year for movies, and I need to see more. I'm hoping to see War for the Planet of the Apes at some point. Maybe Spider-Man: Homecoming if that's still in theaters, which it will be. Um, yeah, but I mean, like these two, Wonder Woman, Lost City of Zed, some Manchester Lion, just like, and even though that was during award bait season, it's not. It's been a solid year for movies. Keep this up because like just I don't know. As like I'm an amateur cinephile, just a really good year for movies. Um, yeah. So that's about my thoughts on the matter. Have a good rest of the night. See ya.